Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dr. Quack Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Quack.
And I'm the important one, Mr. Mayhem. And I want to say, first of all, this is a special request where we were on the trail to the Survivor Series, but we had to survive this.
Yeah.
So, Champ, A-List Alverson, what did we do to piss you off to make us have to review this?
Oh, God, it was...
I found it.
It was so bad. You guys at home get ready for a trip from hell because this one here was nothing but that.
And like I said, last time when I talked about it's better than the other one, officially this is the only pay-per-view for UWF. The other one, which is the Blackjack Brawl, was supposed to be a pay-per-view, but this one did so bad they just put it on regular television. And I remember watching this fondly. I don't know why, because watching it now through the clear eyes of having been a wrestler, this is garbage.
Oh, God.
This is not as bad as XPW, but this is garbage.
See, that's going to be a debatable topic. You let us know at home what you think. But yeah, the UWF Beach Brawl here on June 9th, 1991 in Palmetto, Florida at the Manatee Civic Center. 500 people in attendance. That's what it says on Facebook. I think it's less than that.
No, it's about right, because I looked up the Manatee Civic Center, and most civic centers in smaller towns are 1,000, 1,200, 1,500. This thing holds 5,000 people, and they had 500.
Yeah.
You could tell when they turned the lights off that, you know, basically after the first 7 rows, there was nobody around. And because there's a lot to unpack, let's get through the semantics.
I mean,
first.
this equals a super indie show today, about 500.
Yeah, that's a super indie show, about 500 people.
Yeah, so on commentary, we had Craig DeGeorge and Bruno Sammartino, 2 men that should never be put together.
No, because Craig DeGeorge, there's a reason he was the D-list guy for the WWE. They never let him around crowds. There was a reason for this, and it's because he couldn't stop saying his own name, and he couldn't stop reminding you what happened like 2 minutes ago. The only difference between him and Tony Schiavone is at least Tony Schiavone only has 1 volume. This guy has 3 volumes, and they all suck.
It was pretty bad.
And then you get Bruno Sammartino, who is the wrestling version of listening to Sylvester Stallone. He may be a legendary wrestler, but good God, you take the microphone away, please. I'd rather listen to Lou Albano.
Oh, boy.
Give me Roddy Piper, Lou Albano over those 2.
On interview and ring announcing, we had Frankie East.
Yeah, he wasn't horrible. I'm not going to say anything about him or their host, Brian Ricco. He really didn't serve a purpose.
I didn't understand that why they kept cutting back to him. Did they watch like WCW back in the days?
This really felt like the old ESPN Friday Night Fights.
Yes.
In fact, there was 9 minutes and 45 seconds of time wasted before we got to the ring bell for the first time to announce the first match. And before we do that, we got to get into a little history for those of you who are not familiar with Universal Wrestling Federation owned by Herb Abrams. This is a Herb Abrams show.
Yes.
He started the UWF, the Universal Wrestling Federation, in 1990, and it officially closed in 1996, but they really ran their last show in 1994. He passed away in June of 1996 of a cocaine-induced heart attack. Now, there are 2 other UWF, Universal Wrestling Federations. One of them was owned by a guy named Cowboy Bill Watts, who was the Mid-South UWF title, which 2 of these guys who fought for the title fought for the old UWF title owned by Bill Watts. Then there's the Japanese UWF, which I don't know the Japanese word, but it comes out to be Universal Wrestling Federation. And they're still in existence, although they're not much better than this. They're kind of the show that guys go to learn how to work in front of a crowd, is what that version of the UWF is. And Herb Abrams got into the wrestling business the oddball way. He owned a clothing store, a women's clothing store. he grew to become a wrestling fan. He didn't start out a wrestling fan. And he had a lot of great ideas, or he thought he did. He was kind of Vince Russo-ish. And he went to Vince McMahon, got a meeting with Vince McMahon, and offered Vince McMahon $5 million to buy into the WWF to help write stories. Vince McMahon said no. So when he created his title, if you ever watch this, the cocaine and cowboy boots from Dark Side of the Ring, they talk about he had UWF written on the side, but when you folded it, there was an F on one side and a U on the other side. He said that was specifically every time he held it up to Vince McMahon. Wow. So that's what's going on here. And the reason UWF got any traction, again, because he had money. He had like $15 million, and he brought in some legendary names, like Bruno Sammartino, who said he'd never do anything involved in wrestling ever again. He got Bob Backlund to come in, who was nobody had heard of for years. He got Bob Backlund to come in. He brought in a lot of big names, so people like Pro Wrestling Illustrated paid attention.
Yes, word of the day, Money Marks. We love you.
Yes, that's the best example. Instead of being a convention where you go in and you bring in your favorites to sell their merch, well, he brought in his favorites to have a wrestling show. We're getting ready to do Crown Jewel. He just did it 30 years earlier.
All right. Let's go down to the beginning of this. The first match.
Yes, I'm sorry. I talked for a very long time.
No, it's fine. I get it. Break out the history here. The Blackhearts with Luna Vachon taking on Firecat and Jim Cooper.
All right. So, the Blackhearts, there were 3 members of the Blackhearts during their time in Herb Abrams' UWF. This version was David Heath, or Gangrel, and Tom Nash, who was an indie guy who was a decent worker, had a 22-year wrestling career, never really made it big, but he was well known in the Southeast and in the East Coast. And they took on Firecat, who was Brady Boone, or Battle Cat. He was also a referee, Jim Power, the referee in the WWF for a short time, and jobber to the stars on the indie scene, Jim Cooper. Now, this match, or this show, you could see how loose the ropes were. We're going to explain the importance of tight ropes. Is when you hit the ropes, it's more slingshot to move you back in, so it keeps the speed and timing consistent. You could tell the ropes were so loose, moves were botched and moves were missed just because of how loose the ropes were. And the canvas was loose. I thought it was torn, that's how loose it was. But no, when you have a loose canvas, it gets under your feet and you trip and you stumble and moves get thrown off. That's why the ropes are always very tight in the WWF, most of the time. And the canvas is always very tight because it's clean and it's also for safety reasons. And these weren't followed here.
Yeah, this match here was very bad. This was not a great way to open the show. In my opinion, the only part of this match that was actually awesome was seeing Luna Vachon come out there and manage, and then cut the post-match interview for a little bit because the match itself sucked. I gave this 1.25 stars. This should have a warning label on it, this entire show. Do not watch unless you are an extreme hardcore wrestling fan and have a bottle of Jack or Captain right next to you.
I wanted to drink myself into a stupor after this show, but I had to be sober because, again, I'm wearing this shirt of, this is how confusing UWF's history is. We haven't even gone into their title histories yet.
Oh, God.
But anyway, yeah, this match, I gave it 1 star. There's another thing that annoyed the hell out of me. On 2 of the 4 corners. Now, this one, they were on the corner, the wrong corner side. When you think about WWF, you have the face corner, maybe where you can see the face corner, and then the heel corner. So when you have the hard cam, you can see the faces. Well, they were on the wrong side, and they had a cameraman permanently standing, and he was standing right next to his tag partner the whole time. Yes. They didn't move.
This was bad.
And they were horrible. They couldn't. Their director didn't know how to cut. There's another point later where we can't see either one of the wrestlers, but we see the ass of the referee. 1 star. This match had no storytelling, no psychology, bad indie working. It was like some of these moves they had never done them before, but they thought they could do them. Like David Heath trying to do the spin heel kick on Jim Cooper and just about kicked him in the groin. This is a spin heel kick, folks.
It was horrible. But now we're going to move on to my 2-finger salute, because this match here, I did not understand this, okay?
Yes.
Let me get into this.
Go for it.
This is a street fight between Terry Gordy and Johnny Ace. Left foot laryngitis for you people at home. Taking on Terry Gordy. Terry Bam Bam Gordy, one of the Freebirds at one point. And he was one of the best. And this match was a street fight. But the problem was, how do you finish a street fight on a double countout? This match was ass. This match was garbage. They kept fighting each other all throughout the arena and into the stands where nobody was because there wasn't filled. And then they kept fighting after and they called it a double countout. How do you have a double countout on a street fight?
Would you like to spray it?
Good fucking God!
All right.
And don't worry, that's not my only 2-finger salute. We're going to set a record here today.
All right, so let's start off with the production value. They announced Terry Bam Bam Gordy at 293 pounds. Then we saw his name flash and it said 253 pounds. That happened almost every time they got the wrong weight. Yeah, yes, this was supposed to be Don the Rock Morocco. Now, there was supposed to be some kind of backstory build-up. If we went back and watched it was a weekly show. So if we went back and watched the weekly show, we would figure out why there was a street fight between Don Morocco and Terry Gordy. Now, Don Morocco was unavailable, so we get the Mighty Mullet. Yeah, people power. The bad dynamic dude that couldn't ride a skateboard.
Oh, man.
Now, yeah, right. It was called a street fight. They even said when they were announcing it. Now, Herb Abrams was the one doing the voiceover of this, who specifically said street fight, no rules, no count out, no disqualification. And then this match ends in a double count out because that wasn't a count out, it was a double count out.
Reasons.
Exactly. Reasons. And we also had the Boeing 747, old baby Huey, Johnny Ace, trying to do a tope, which is a spring over, only he couldn't do it, and Terry Gordy had to catch him so he didn't plant himself face first in the concrete. I gave this match 2 stars, but the only reason I gave it 2 stars was the action afterward was better than this match. Their fight was believable. This match was very Gaijin Japanese. And these 2 guys were big stars in Japan. The Stone Cold Stunner was originally called the Ace Crusher.
Yes.
Johnny Ace, folks. People power does have a legend in wrestling.
Oh, God, do we not have to talk about that legend now? Can we move on to...
No, not really, because this one sucked too.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, let's just get it over with. Let's just get it over with. All right.
I'm glad you got a good smelling spray right there. Mass Confusion. Brian Blair and Jim Brunzell taking on the Power Twins. Larry and David Power.
Yeah, now this is another production. Oops. Sometimes it was Mass, M-A-S-S. Sometimes it was what it was supposed to be, M-A-S-K. Mask Confusion. Take B. Brian Blair and Jumping Jim Brunzell. Brunzell left the WWF for a short period of time to come over here, went back, and then realized it was time for him to hang it up. B. Brian Blair kind of hung out here from the get-go. Thought he was going to get paid a lot of money, got paid a lot of IOUs, ended up having to file for bankruptcy because of UWF. Taking on the only 2 people who actually benefited from the UWF directly, the Power Twins. These 2 guys got acting careers to include being in Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 12, amongst many other things. These guys actually benefited. But it wasn't because of their wrestling.
No.
This match was basically, if you ever go to an independent wrestling show and you watch the local halfway decent talent taking on the national celebrity or the national name. That's what this match was, folks. The 2 mid-card guys on the indie circuit who didn't know how to take the cues, didn't know how to be in the right place in the right location, taking on 2 national names, and this match was god-awful. I went 1.5. There was no flair to this, no timing. The heat segment came too late. The staged ending, it was hokey, but the crowd seemed to like it, so I had to give it 1.5 because at least this was the loudest the crowd was until the main event.
Yeah, this is rated B for botch fest, bad selling, bad promo, bad commentary, and the stolen finish they used in WWF, during the late 80s. Here, let's put the mask on. Let's pretend we're the Killer Bees again.
But they couldn't use that name. That's why they were Mask Confusion.
Yeah, and it was
Mask
stupid.
Confusion. It was all confusing.
Yes, oh my God. Moving along, 1.25 stars by the way. Jesus God. And then we got Rockin' Robin taking on Candy Divine for the UWF Women's Championship. I do like to say that belt looks pretty.
I did like that one. It was one of the nicer looking belts. So I guess it's time to explain the UWF title history.
Oh no.
Herb Abrams, because he was cocaine most of his life, he would forget things. So he would create a title, and then that person would win the title and then leave with the belt. He had money. He just made a new belt. So there's an Israeli heavyweight title in the UWF held by one person named Joshua Ben-Gurion, who was god-awful in the ring, but he was 6 feet 8 inches tall, and he was born in Israel, so he has the Israeli heavyweight title.
Yes.
This belt was defended twice. So this has one of the longer title histories. Dr. Dusty Williams won the heavyweight title 2 different times under 2 different names. There was the TV title that was won by somebody else. So there was like 11 different title belts, all because he kept forgetting who he gave the title belt to, so he'd make a new one. And then we get into this match. Candy Divine and Rockin' Robin. This match was Moolah training at its finest.
It was.
The only difference was they had enough respect for each other to not do hair mares. I went 1.25. I wanted to go more, but Candy Divine by this point was way past her prime. Rockin' Robin actually was not. She was in her prime, but she wasn't great. She was fighting demons. She never had the demons that Sam Houston and Jake Roberts had, but she was fighting them. So her head was never in the wrestling game.
Yeah, it was very sloppy. I went 1.5 on this. I know I've seen better out of Rockin' Robin, and I know I've seen a lot better out of Candy Divine.
Yeah, this also was a 20-foot wrestling ring.
Yes.
WWF uses 20-foot wrestling rings, but also because the ropes are very tight and camera angles, it makes the action look like it moves faster than it actually does. Most indie circuits do 16 to 18 foot. This was a 20-foot ring with loose ropes. So, like Candy Divine Rockin' Robin went for a drop kick, but Candy Divine took so long coming back that the timing was off. She missed the drop kick, and you could tell Candy Divine was like. So this one, where a big ring with not tight ropes, it really showed how bad the action was in this match.
Yeah. Now I'm going to move on to my second 2-finger salute, because this one here gets a fist. This is horrible. Paul Orndorf taking on Colonel De Beers. I'm going to get into the very beginning of this, okay? When you have a setup scene, where you're showing all the back history before the match, have the people in it where it makes sense. They had Colonel De Beers fighting, I believe it was Junkyard Dog.
No, that wasn't Junkyard Dog. That was, the referee's name was Nate Sampson.
Yeah, Nate Sampson. Had a problem with Nate Sampson on there, but there was other matches that he had. None of them with Paul Orndorf. None of them there that involved this match. And then you've got, the whole racist storyline out here talking about,
I'll go into that part. Finish your rant, but I'll explain Colonel De Beers.
Yeah, you go into Colonel De Beers. But this match here, you had a strap match, and you're expecting one here, a strap. No, they just had a belt, and they were whipping each other with it. This was not the strap match. This was just a belt whipping match, and I thought it was pretty much horrible. I went 1.25 stars on this. This was god-awful.
Yeah, before I get into Colonel De Beers, the ladies' match is also where they had the bad camera angle of Candy Divine had Rockin' Robin in a chin lock, and all you saw was Billy Silverman's ass. So to explain Colonel De Beers, now I grew up in the Pacific Northwest watching a guy named Mega Maharishi, who was a Indian Pakistani type gimmick. He was Ed Wiskowski, who is also known as Colonel De Beers. Colonel De Beers was a character. He knew his wrestling skill was okay, so he came up with the biggest heat magnet he could that would not exist today. He was a South African pro-apartheid colonel, which for those of you that don't remember the apartheid, that's when South Africa segregated and tried to imprison all black people. Nelson Mandela ended up ending it. But Colonel De Beers supported that. He would do a lot of racist things. His biggest feud in the AWA was with Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Well, he would do a lot of this. I can't that referee can't referee because he's black. I'm not facing you. He had a long feud with the Junkyard Dog in Canada because Junkyard Dog was black. Now, ultimately, he would always get his ass kicked. So he knew if he built up the heat, people would want to see him get his ass whooped. And he was usually good about that.
And there's one thing else I got to bring up. That stun gun was horrible. That made the Mounties look legit. You know, this one here, you couldn't even tell it was on him at all, and the sound was horrible. It looked like ass.
Well, it was a real stun gun, unlike the Mounties. That was a real stun gun, but it had no batteries. Because in real life, the voltage level, if you would have done it like this, where it was right next to your arm, you'd be getting zapped too.
Yeah.
So it was to hide the fact there was no batteries in it.
Yeah, it was...
But Colonel De Beers played the racist character on purpose. He's not a real racist. He actually is. He would teach at a black university, and he told his people, "I'm doing this to make the crowd understand how racism is bad." So Colonel De Beers did it with the right intentions, but it still would not be acceptable today.
No, it wasn't really acceptable back then either.
Not really, no, but at least like I said, he would go and let himself get his ass whooped to show that if you say stupid things, you get stupid rewards.
This is very
Now,
true.
again, this was not a strap match with one strap on each shoulder. The referee threw the belt up in the air and rang the bell. That's how this thing started. And I went 1.5, but the more I talked about it, I'm agreeing with you, 1.25.
Yeah. And in between this and the next match, we had a Captain's Corner.
Yeah, UWF weekly television show. You know, Vince had Brother Love, Vince had the Flower Shop, Vince had Piper's Pit. Well, they had Captain Lou Albano, who was their resident loudmouth, so he would do the Captain's Corner. But in real life, he's scared of snakes. So when Lou Vachon came down there with the snake, he chucked the microphone and was out of there on a pay-per-view.
I think he summed up the entire show at this point. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah. What's the Iggy? Take it home.
Take it home.
Take it home. Take it home. Take it home. No, we still got 3 more matches. Going into this one, which this is the match I was looking forward to seeing, the Legends match. The Russian Bear, Ivan Koloff with Mr. Red, taking on Bob Backlund.
Yeah. That one here, this one actually gets my quiet attack. Sorry. These other matches have made it really bad, but this match here was really good. I love the fact that these two guys, I finally got to see them work. I didn't know they did work. But Bob Backlund and Ivan Koloff, the man that, was a former champion with Bruno Sammartino involved in both of their careers, being around that. I love this match. This match actually gets a 2.5 star from me. I mean, it was short, sweet, to the point. Bob finished him off with his roll-up. I love the match. I thought it was perfect timing finally to make me smile about something on this show.
Yeah, my only problem with this match was it was too short, and part of that was because of the fact that Ivan Koloff was in his 50s, and his cardio was really starting to fail him at this point. So he wasn't able to do much more than about 6 minutes on this match. It was good. I only went 2, but you're right. I'm going to up it to 2.25. And then they brought in, Ivan Koloff came out with a guy named Mr. Red.
Yes, and that counted towards my 2.5 there, because what Captain Lou did after that was hilarious.
Yeah, but it was very obvious and staged. Now, if you've seen Dark Side of the Ring, you are familiar with who Mr. Red is. He is Marty Yesberg. Yeah. He's the big, heavy-set red-haired guy. They kept talking about he had to clean up the stuff afterwards because Herb Abrams would go out and party and left all the merchandise, so he had to clean up the merchandise. He's the one that, the story that Herb Abrams had hired 3 prostitutes for him, and he wasn't interested because he was married. So Herb Abrams went off with the 3 prostitutes and left him sitting in a chair. Yeah. Dark Side of the Ring actually did a good job of covering the history of this. 2.25 stars. This led to Bob Backlund returning to the United States, and it led to WrestleMania 8 against Razor Ramon.
9. Razor
Was that 9?
Yes.
Oof.
Yeah. Don't worry, we'll be talking about Bob later on in shows. But moving along here, we have Wet and Wild with Stevie Ray and Sonny Beach taking on Cactus Jack and Bob Orton with John Tolos.
Yeah.
And John Tolos was suspended above the ring in a cage.
Yeah. And this made me chuckle. Cowboy Bob Orton, Cactus Jack, and Coach John Tolos came out to the Bonanza theme.
Yes.
Yes. It really happened.
3 of them came out to the Tetris theme as well, by the way. So I don't know who their music guy was, but they love playing Tetris and watching old cowboy TV shows. Now, Sonny Beach was an underneath guy for the WWF for a while. He worked under his real name. He was an underneath guy there back and forth. He also teamed up in a tag team, the original Wet and Wild, with a guy named the Sandman. Same guy on ECW. Imagine that guy with a lot less tattoos in a green suit or green tights coming to the ring with a surfboard. That was the original Sandman. That's why that's where the name came from. Sonny Beach and the Sandman, Wet and Wild.
Yes.
Well, after a very short career as that, the Sandman left and they brought in the Wild Thing Steve Ray. This is not Stevie Ray and Booker T.
No.
This is the Wild Thing Steve Ray, who looks a lot like Steve Dahl or Timothy Well from Well Done.
Yes.
He was an indie guy. He and Chris Champion and Sean Royal did a lot of work in the Tennessee area. He had a decent following, but he was never... He was kind of a jerk in real life. He tried to sue ESPN when they put replays of Herb Abrams' UWF on ESPN, and he claims it invaded his privacy, and he tried to sue ESPN. So he's kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
This match was 1 3/4. Cactus put on color. Gee, what a shock. It was hokey. It was short. The crowd didn't care. But the after-match battle is why this thing got 1 3/4 stars.
And for me, that's why it got 2 stars there, because that after-match battle was nice. I enjoyed that. That was better than the regular match itself.
Yeah. He was just Cactus Jack at this point. He had lost the Manson name. He hadn't picked up the Foley name. He was just Cactus Jack. He's doing the Cactus Elbow.
Yep. Cactus Clothesline.
Cactus Clothesline. But this match, it was so hard to keep track of it. It was only a tag team match.
Now we're going into the main event here.
Thank God for that.
Thank God, because I'm telling you, it's been a shit sandwich this entire show. Steve Williams taking on Bam Bam Bigelow in the tournament finals for the UWF Inaugural Sports Channel Television Championship.
Yeah, their first version of the heavyweight title. Now, I mentioned the Cowboy Bill Watts UWF. The first UWF champion was Dr. Death Steve Williams. And he faced a man in the finals named Crusher Yurkoff. Crusher Yurkoff is now known as Bam Bam Bigelow.
Yes.
So that's where that history ties in. Now, this match was pretty good.
Yeah.
Compared to everything else, the rating, I think, got hurt by how bad this show was.
Yes.
I went 2 3/4 stars on this match. This match was really good. It was like 12 minutes. The action was back and forth. It was solid. They both put on color. They both carried themselves through. There was build-up. There was pauses to make the story that they were telling make sense. This match was really, really, really good.
And this is why people say Bam Bam was so great to work with in the ring, because he could work with anybody. Even guys like Dr. Death. Dr. Death is great. I mean, did you see that power slam at the end? That was incredible. Just the way they handled that perfectly. That could have been botched so many ways.
Yes, Bam Bam, for being 390 some odd pounds, was really light on his feet and really understood how to balance his weight to help people carry him, lift him, and move him around.
Yeah.
And this ended in the Oklahoma Stampede, 2 3/4 stars. Dr. Death wins the title, holds it for a year, but only defends it twice, and then decides to leave to go back to do Brawl for All.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at some point down the line here. I can imagine that.
So here's another big shocking thing. Finish your story, and then I want to shock some people here.
No, I just wanted to say I'm going 2 3/4 stars with you. I thought this was probably the best match of the night, but it doesn't get the quack attack because, dude, this should be the best match of the night.
Yeah, there's 7 Hall of Fame WWE Hall of Famers on this show. 7.
Proof that no matter how great your talent is, your show does not mean it's going to be great because of it.
That's so true.
But that's the end of our show here. Thank you guys for tuning in. But don't worry, important one. We're going to continue on our road.
Yeah, we're going
to
back
Survivor
to
Series,
Survivor Series.
and we're going to this one here. Chuck Norris approves. I'm Dr. Quack.
I guess I can give it 1 thumbs up for Chuck Norris approves.
And we'll see you next time.